with Pepi most likely out for the Nations League. Is Tim Weah our guy? The guy that just started at right back for Juventus, the Champions League? Is he our best option at number 9? We got Josh Sargent, who's back in the fold, right? But, I mean, we might have the right back for Juventus in the Champions League starting as our number 9 in the Nations League, and that's hilarious. Okay, let's get into Ricardo Pepi, because this guy, and to your point about PSV, if I don't see Americans starting or just Americans in general, then I'm probably not going to turn on the game. When I saw that Ricardo Pepi was going to get the start against Liverpool in the Champions League, I was like, yes, and please, Big Tones. And he didn't disappoint. He had a great layoff to Bakayoko, who did a lot of great, fun work to score a hell of a goal. For this one, we're watching it right now. If you're on the YouTubes, I mean, he dices 2 guys. It went sliding, and there was a finish into the side netting. But I love the spacing and the understanding of Bakayoko to come get that ball underneath Ricardo Pepi. So there's clearly some ideas of patterns of play that we're seeing that Ricardo Pepi is looking to lay that off. Good chest down. And then he scores a goal of his own. I don't know if he touched it, but he got himself in a great spot, and they gave him credit for it. So we're going to give it. He was named man of the match for this game, but he came off in the 76th minute with a knee injury that is now being reported as something a little bit more serious. And I don't think he's going to be available. If I had to guess, speculate, I don't think he's going to be available for the CONCACAF Nations League at all. So that gives me some concern, but let's get back to his performance first, because we got to give that its flowers, Big Tones. He played against the Liverpool team, wasn't the full squad. There was no Virgil van Dijk, a lot of the younger players, but you can only play against the team that's in front of you. And I thought he stood up and made the most of his chances, like he's done with PSV all season.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this so many times. Like, he does what he's asked to do, and every time he gets an opportunity, he scores goals. And whether you liked Ricardo Pepi or not, a year ago, wherever you were on him, he certainly has gotten better at whatever level you thought he was at. Right? I like him. I like his size. I like his speed. He's getting better with hold-up play. One thing he has is a knack for goal. And that there's just certain players, right, that you can't. There's a sense, right? The Jimmy, you were a defender, so you probably trained with a bunch of guys. You're like, how the hell did he get in that spot? You know, like, why is he there? Just has a sense for where the goal is. The guy scored goals at every single level so far that he's been at. And the hope is that he scores goals at the national team level, and he has. But I mean, we're looking at a guy that we want to see as potentially a starting center forward for the team. The injury sucks. I mean, I got the news as soon as I was walking into the studio when we were doing the Europa League today. Literally, we were walking in the door was open, and one of our producers at CBS showed me the news about Pepi, and I was like, I literally said to him, "Can we not have nice things? Like, what's wrong, man? Why can't we have nice things?" I feel for the kid, because I think, again, wherever you were on Pepi,
that could have been a tipping point though for him, Tones, right? I mean, that's a tipping point performance.
Yeah.
Where if you're Ernie Stewart, or if you're the coaching staff, you're looking at that going, he did it again. Like, we're looking for reasons to maybe move on from Luke de Jong, and he just gave us a goal and an assist against a very good opponent, and then he gets hurt. And now you're like, crap, now Luke de Jong might have to stay in the conversation for a little bit longer, depending on the severity of this injury. If it's an ACL, the guy's going to be out, 8 to 10 months, like Serginho Dest, and that would be absolutely heartbreaking.
And most athletes go through this stuff. They go through injuries. They've got to come back, and some are a little bit more serious than others. And I just feel for him, because I think he got to a point where, even if you were pro Flo Balogun as your number 9, you're at least thinking about Ricardo Pepi and what he's been doing, right? You're at least going, okay, maybe I should give the guy a shot. And I think we were convinced that, because of the injury to Balogun and the shoulder operation and all that stuff, we were going to see Ricardo Pepi as the number 1 striker coming into March in the Nations League. So this stinks for him. It's so easy to say every athlete goes through it, because they do, but you just hate to see it, because I feel for a kid who didn't make a World Cup, stayed hungry, goes to a place where he's now fighting a legend, basically at his own club, and making his way in there, as you said. And then, my fingers are crossed that, like, tomorrow we're going to wake up and go, we thought it was a little bit worse, and it's a little knee problem, but we don't need an operation. It's kind of, I don't know. We don't know the extent of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hoping.
Yeah, according to Day Telegraph over there in Holland, they're saying that it's not an ACL. So that's good news based on what we're seeing some publications over there, but obviously we'll have to wait and see. Another bit of news around Ricardo Pepi. PSV rejected a $26 million bid from West Ham for him. And I think that's a good thing ultimately, because that means that hopefully PSV's promising him that he's going to get more playing time going into the future, which is good. And Eredivisie is a good spot for him. PSV is a good spot for him. I still believe he needs to learn how to be the starter, if that makes sense, right? We're talking about that with Gio as well, where, okay, Luke de Jong's out of the picture. I almost said out of the photo. That doesn't make any sense. Out of the picture. And now you're the guy. And so now that you're the guy, I need him, and this goes for a lot of our younger players, no matter what level. Now that you're the person that we're trusting to run the attack for us, score goals, be important. Well, what happens when you go through a run of, let's say, 6 to 8 games where you're not scoring? How do you fight through that? I mean, that's still a skill, and there's an art to that, right? And
100%. That's a great point, Jimmy.
A mental and emotional thing. So I'm glad I bring that up, because if he had gone to West Ham, okay, cool. It sounds romantic, and you get to go play in the Premier League, but they're not settled in yet. And they've got a new coach too, and they've got a new system. And I just don't know if that would have been the right situation right away. It's going to happen for him. But from a PSV perspective as well, if he comes in and is the guy and shows that he can replace Luke de Jong, and say he gets 20 to 25 goals next year when he's healthy and the number one guy at the 9 spot, then you could probably sell him for twice as much. So I think there's a lot of reasons for him to want to stay at PSV for both the club and for the player. And so we'll see how that all works out. But first and foremost, I hope that he's healthy. Now to put a bow on this conversation, with Balogun out for the Nations League, with Pepi most likely out for the Nations League, is Tim Weah our guy? The guy that just started at right back for Juventus, the Champions League? Is he our best option at number 9? We got Josh Sargent, who's back in the fold, right? But I mean, we might have the right back for Juventus in the Champions League started as our number 9 in the Nations League, and that's hilarious.
You probably would have brought, if Pepi was okay, you probably would have brought Pepi. You probably would have brought in Josh Sargent. Who else would you bring into camp at this point? Would you is Adjiman a guy that showed you enough to bring? I'm just thinking about guys you would have brought in. Forget about who's going to play, right? Is Adjiman a guy you would have brought in? Yeah, maybe. Who are the other guys? Do you how'd you write? Or Brandon Vasquez? Can he get off to a quick start with his new club, Austin? You would think about bringing him in, and then after that, it's probably Hadji's still hurt, right? So that's not an option. Thinking off the top of my head here, it would be Timothy Weah. I mean, who else is there right now? So now you're down to 3. You're down to Sargent, Adjiman, and Tim Weah. Who is there anybody? Oh, Brandon Vasquez. Yes, Vasquez.
That's another option as well. We saw a comment there from Gordo that I don't think anybody should be handed the number 9 spot. Sargent's just kind of getting back into the team. I agree, but I'll bring into the conversation though is, well, you've been a part of this, Tones. We both have, where when you go into these types of camps, you don't really have that much time because it's in the middle of the club season. So you're around the group for 2 or 3 days. There's no full trainings. There's not like you're going to be able to compete with the other guys to see who's the best number 9 in these trainings. That should probably already be determined. So ultimately, what I'm saying is it's probably going to be club form going into it. I still feel like Tim Weah is going to have the advantage, given that he's already demonstrated that he can play that and play it well for Juve. If Sargent obviously walks into this camp scoring a ton of goals, or if Adjiman or Vasquez start MLS on fire, then maybe there's a different conversation to be had. But for right now, I'd put my money on Tim Weah.